We're live here on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. I got the chat up as well for people that join the chat. This is the Space Water Podcast. What's up, Chloe? Space Water Podcast, episode 27. Yeah, we've been having some technical difficulties the last 2 days. I literally went down in the middle of a podcast last night while I was on Don Rogers' podcast on there he is. Don's in the house. What's up? I just was having problems getting live on my my internet just now as well. Welcome everybody joining. Charlotte Knight's in the house. Don Rogers at March 4th Productions is in the house. Chloe's in the house. Don't forget to subscribe to their channels as well, both Chloe and Don. You could find his After Dark radio show on wherever you find podcasts. And you can also find it. Hold on, let me shut all my notifications off, volumes off here. There we go. There we go. Glad you all are making it. Welcome, Charlotte. Welcome, everybody out there. This, like I said, is the Space Water Podcast. We're going to be going deep tonight. I got some groundbreaking information to share with you guys, and you're going to be hearing some information that you can't hear anywhere else. Welcome, Lisa Lynn. Welcome. Yeah, yeah, Rex. Yeah, no doubt. I still talk to Rex every once in a while, but his channel has changed a lot. I was actually supposed to do his channel like a week or two ago, but the schedule didn't line up. I had to do something with my daughter. And but I'll be probably on Rex's League project. You can't even find all the old videos. Those are all gone. They're all deleted from Rex's channel now. I guess he got demonetized, and then his YouTube manager, I guess when you get big subscribers like he has. I only have a meager 9K. I'm not good enough for a YouTube manager, but he has a YouTube manager, and they had a recommended, I guess, he delete all his old videos. And so I guess he did that. But me and Rex had some videos that had over 350,000 views and things like that. So yeah, some of the videos I did with Rex, I don't actually agree with some of that information now. I've sort of evolved in a way with a lot of things, but I was trying to work out some of the things I've witnessed, some of the things I've seen, some of the things that um I experienced in life. I was trying to interpret it and figure it out in many different ways. And I probably shouldn't have been speaking about a lot of the topics I was speaking about prematurely. A lot of those videos were fire. Yeah, I agree. But some of those videos, when I look back at them years later, I'm like, you know what? I don't agree with a lot of the things that I was saying. But, it's not that you're wrong. You have to be technically wrong in many ways to find the truth, right? You have to explore to get things right in any way in life, right? Or to be good at anything, you got to be wrong at it many, many times. I mean, I come from a combat sports background in life, right? I before you guys ever heard me speak about any of these topics, I went through from the time I was 5 or 6 years old to the time I was 29, 30, competing in some sort of high energy sport, whether it was soccer, whether it was kickboxing, wrestling, Muay Thai. Um, I had that high energy fire within me, right? And when I stopped competing and training at that sort of high energy, I started to explore more the spiritual side of that high energy of myself, more than just the aggression. A lot of the stuff that I was dealing with internally, that traumas you have is growing up, all these different things that I went through, I was trying to deal with that through the fire that it gave me inside, right? Well, I also have that same fire for many mysteries of the universe and soul, and a lot of the things that I experience in life set me on my path to do the research that I'm doing. But through scholarship alone, you can't get the answers of nature in the universe, or we're all striving to find out where we fit in nature in the universe. Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where are we all going? Right? What happens after death? Right? All of these questions that arise. Well, through scholarship alone, you're not going to get those answers. You have to live your life and go through life experiences and start to connect to nature and your environment and the inhabitants of the planet and the universe. And then once you start experiencing that and you sort of are able to navigate through and smash your ego a little bit, you'll start to feel the other energies around you besides your own freaking ego. And then once you become aware that you have these cords that are coming out of you, right from your navel and different areas of your spine, right from your spine, all your different energetic locations, you literally have these cords that are coming out of you that are connecting to all the vibrating elements that you're connected to and of all of nature and everything on the planet. You can have cords connected from you to someone across the whole planet, right? From or maybe even across the universe. That's why I always talk about cutting those cords every day, right? We have they call it in Italian the very more simple version of an example of how these cords can form is what we call the maloik, right? The maloicchio, which means like the evil eye. But where does this even originate is from people shooting you dirty looks, right? And especially if someone was a witch, right? They would, or a dirty look from that person can be even more materializing evil for you, or have more intention that's embedded within it that can really, you know, that could really, especially depending on the belief system of the target, it could wrap a cord right around you, and that cord gets stuck deep within you, and they start wrapping around you and forming like a spiritual girdle around you and getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And sometimes the cords even come from within us and wrap around our own souls, right? So every day when you wake up or before you go to sleep, even you could cut these cords, right? You can even do like uh, a sort of technique where you're visualizing this, right? So if you have these cords, say, coming from your navel area, right? Coming out from your navel, and all these cords are connected to things all over the planet, right? Well, you can literally take your hands and you can actually make scissors like this and literally cut them, right? Or you can use the chopping motion, right? Where you're swinging and you're cutting those cords, right? And you could just wing them off, and you can actually be thinking, about specific chords as well, like the chords from my cousins, my father, my sister, my whatever. You're just the different people that you might have these attachments to, because right, we have certain people that are thinking about us, certain people that we think about throughout the day, arguments that we had with family members, all these different things that come up, right? Well, those cords need to be severed because they fester and they take you off of your course, right? They make you think about them and they grow and they become boogeymen on you, right? And so you got to cut those cords. You got to cut those cords, and you'll be able to uh you'll be able to see these cords actually who they're attached to mentally, visually, telepathically, as you become more in touch with your environment and nature, and you start to receive the spiritual signs around you, and then you'll start to understand yourself a little bit more, right? But it does take you to be comfortable with yourself sexually, mentally, physically, all of that. It takes that, because as you become more insecure about things, those cords smother you, right? Cords that you even create yourself. All right, so we're going to be getting deep tonight. I thought I would give that little information out. And working with crystals and copper, these are good ways to protect yourself from those cords, or to have a better connection to your higher self, so you can see these cords and be aware of these cords, right? So this is Really cool. Of course, tonight is sponsored by the Mystical Spiral store. We just had two of my favorite pendants I've ever made purchased today too. So they're going quick. You guys can see my website. Hold on. For those of us just joining us, we're really proud of the website. Let me pull it up for you guys real quick before we get further started. Share screen. This is the Mystical Spiral store. This one was just made. It's out of stock now, but I can make similar ones. Both ones I made like this sold very fast. This is 12.74 carats of some of the highest quality Ethiopian gemstone you can get, and I wrapped both the silver coated copper and the regular copper around it. My own unique piece. Really, really cool here. If you want one like this, the Alcyon Rays amulet or my 7 Rays amulet, I have other ones that will be available. Two of these recently just sold out. The other one I made like a few weeks ago. I just shipped it out today, actually, this one. This is a similar one that I tried it out. It was an idea I had to put them both together. But yeah, these are very, very high quality opals. I have others available. Also, these ones sold out so quick. I don't have any more of the Azurite Gathena Earth amulets right now. They both sold. These ones. I also have one that I made for myself that I wear. It's right here. It's one of my favorites. I'll show you guys. Hold on, let me stop sharing. But you guys can check it out, of course, at the Mystical Spiral store. I'll go back to the website at the end of the broadcast. But this is my own one that I wear of the Agartha Athena, the malachite and azurite. And this is a copper-based material. Most greens and blues, I think, are copper-based. This is the Agartha Gathena Earth Amulet. Really love these. Thank you, Don Rogers, for posting that. Appreciate it, brother. And guys, don't forget to subscribe. You got 14 people in the chat room here tonight, and Don's one of them. So 13 others should be subscribed to Don. If you like, Don's got some interesting information. He has some interesting guests. And of course, I'm going to be, even if you don't want to check out the other people on Don's show, I'm going to be appearing once a month on Don's show. So if you're here for me tonight, you're going to be able to see me on Don's show once a month. So it's definitely worth subscribing to him if you're interested in seeing me on Don's show once a month, right? So, and then maybe you'll be able to find some other people that you can connect with and find interesting on Don's channel. Yeah, they are copper based. Thank you, Chloe. Yeah, I think most blues and greens are. This is another kind of malachite. See, malachite comes in all different forms. Like I have some like this one I call the Gumby. Look at this. Doesn't it look like Gumby with the two holes here in the mouth? This is like hard like ceramic, this piece. Hear it? This is like a ceramic freeform of malachite right here. And then you have you got other malachites like that sort of like it's like velvety. This piece over here, I'm all sold out of these. This is my own personal little piece of but I do have some malachite large spheres available and different types of malachite available. This is a velvety malachite freeform. It's got like a cat's eye sheen to it. I love this malachite. And malachite is not harmful to you in this form, right? Some people think malachite can be harmful. It's not harmful to you in this form. Also, I got some geodes of malachite here as well. He's got some like, see how it's like a geode? These are really cool. All right. What's interesting too is before we get even started to more of the information tonight, I had such an experience the other day with a hummingbird, and I haven't seen a hummingbird in years. And I'm not going to get into the personal thing that was happening, but part of it actually I was thinking about and working on some of the research that we're going to be talking about tonight. And it has to do with structures that are formed within the universe that channels light and channels souls, right? And what I mean by channels, I mean funnels that carries not just information from the sun to planets, stars, to planets, to life, where inhabitants live, right? But it's also the way souls travel throughout the cosmos, right? The mist of who we are, right? It's the funnel of life, right? And this structure forms within plasma, and it forms within the solar wind. It forms within above stars. And uh, uh, David Lapointe did a very interesting um, experiment where he was able to simulate what he called primer fields, very similar to what you see right here behind me. Right here, you see that structure that forms, that cone, that funnel structure. Well, that's a very important structure that's made throughout the universe and that we've been misinterpreting, and it's right in front of our eyes in all of cultures, right? And I'm going to show you guys some deep, deep information that I was given by the universe that's even going to transpire starting on September 12th with Jupiter. And people don't realize we have, energetic plasma portals. So our magnetosphere, I'm going to try to explain this so the everyday person can understand it, because not many people research plasma physics or know the terminology or anything like that. So our magnetosphere is way different than like Jupiter's, right? Our magnetosphere gets most of its plasma within it, and it's formed, right, by plasma. It's formed by the solar wind, right? So we'll get into this in a minute, right? So our magnetosphere around our planet, our Garuda, right? These are Garudas. These are the Garudas from Hindu, right? These are planetary protectors and much more. They're gateways, right? They also are gateways for creation, for music, to broadcast, for the sun, for life to be maintained on the planet. This is a veil. This is when everybody says the veil is thinning, this is the veil, right? Garuda is the wings around our planet. But our magnetosphere is formed by the solar wind coming from the sun. The ramming force of the solar wind forms our magnetosphere. Now, that doesn't happen on Jupiter. The Jupiter's magnetosphere is formed from within Jupiter. The plasma within the magnetosphere of Jupiter is not taken from the sun. No, it's taken from one of Jupiter's moons, Io, right? Which is a volcanic environment that's very close to Jupiter, that's blasting off ionized particles, gases, and plasma that forms what they call the plasma torus, right, around Jupiter. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. Let me share screen. All right, so we'll get into these in a minute. This is Jupiter. All right, so you could see. All right, so right here, the blue is the plasma torus, right? That's formed by Jupiter's moon, Io, and it's from exploding volcanoes on Jupiter, on Jupiter's moon, Io, right? So that's where the magnetosphere of Jupiter, and you can see this cone structure here. We'll get into that. We'll look at that into that actually in a minute as well. But you can see Jupiter's blue plasma torus. There, that plasma torus forms because of the explosions of Jupiter's moon. Now, people may have heard of the Van Allen belts. Well, that's named after James Van Allen, right? He was someone that's very instrumental in a lot of the missions that happened as well. Well, he had a lot to do during the lunar missions, so-called lunar missions of the 1960s. There were other priorities that NASA was sending out, right? And some of them had to do with Jupiter. They wanted to know about the electromagnetic environment of Jupiter, the chemical and physical nature of the atmosphere of Jupiter and the dynamics thereof. Yeah, it's crazy, right, guys? And then the thermal balance, the composition, the internal structure, the evolutionary history of Jupiter and its satellites, the interplanetary magnetic and electric fields and interplanetary particles of the solar and galactic origin out to the large heliocentric radial distances. Also, the particulate matter in and beyond the asteroid belt. That was very specific that they did, right? And so when he proposed all this, they gave those missions to him. So he was like instrumental to starting some of those missions. So it was like the Pioneer missions, I think they were called, and they had I think by 1981 each of the two Voyagers had flown through both the Jovian, which is Jupiter, the Jovian and the Saturn systems. And they got a lot of knowledge. You know, the Voyager 2 also went by, I think, in the 1980s, the Neptune and Uranus and all those. But the contents that they got out of those missions ended up in this book from Cambridge about the physics of the Jovian magnetosphere. This is from Cambridge Planetary Science Series, The Physics of the Jovian Magnetosphere. You guys can get this book. It was published in the 1980s, 1983, I think, originally, but this has most of the information that they got from those missions. And you guys can see a lot of interesting information in here. You probably don't want the mathematics, but the magnetopause, the dynamics of the magnetopause, these cone structures that form, it's all talked about in there as well. Not all of the information that we get from NASA and these missions is bullcrap, but they do hide things from us, and they do doctor things, right? So I have even proof of that from my own family, like Lori Bruno, my Aunt Lori. She part of the Our Lady and Lord of the Trinacrian Rose. She's in her 80s now. She's been on my show before. She worked for NASA as a technical illustrator as an intern when she was 19 years old, right out of high school. And she worked right where under Werner von Braun. She was one of the interns as a technical illustrator. And yeah, they definitely were involved with doctoring photos and videos and faking things. But that doesn't mean that everything in space is fake, right? But I don't think we truly understand the way it works or the properties behind them all, right? And you can see these sort of cone structures or funnels, they tend to form, and it's the way light moves, information moves from stars. You can see this actually is a big conical structure that's forming, the way light flows. You know, these rings and loops are being misinterpreted. These are the actual, you ever see the hand baskets that everybody debates what these hand baskets mean on Sumerians and all of this? These are the twisting magnetic field lines that form these loops. And the basket is the waters that the cosmic waters that those magnetic field lines and coronal loops are carrying by the solar deity, right? And the wings, they represent the solar wind that's pushing it and carrying it, right? It's all solar symbolism. They're solar kings, right? So it's not out of context. You got to look at the context. We're talking about solar kings, right? And you can see this is some of the oldest, even before Egyptian, this is Thracian symbolisms. And these are solar kings amulets. And you can see, look at the light flowing out of the conical structures, right? And twisting magnetic field lines that form loops. And this is the symbol for the sun. This is on an old Thracian vase, right? And the vase is even on a loop, right? Even the chalice is a symbol of this, right? And you can see this is an old Thracian amulet, right? Where they're holding the staff with the funnel on top. This is the more stylized, right? This is the later Egyptian version of that same hieroglyph, which is groundbreaking, right? So this is the old Thracian one, and look at the Egyptian version. These conical structures are the way plasma and light is channeled and flowed through the universe. They're structures that's formed within the universe, and they are the way stars process and stream their information. And you can see these conical structures are everywhere, right? So when you have Ganesha holding this lotus type funnel, it's the same thing. This is a solar deity. Sometimes Ganesha is also holding the coronal loop or the pasha, right? The golden noose of the gods. And this structure is formed all throughout the universe. See, right here, that conical structure. And it forms at specific times. So sometimes it's very hard for us to get visions of this because when the sun is going through certain stages, these structures will form above and below the sun. I think it was David Lapointe. That did the primer fields right here. So David Lapointe did very interesting. Unfortunately, some people have developed their own religious dogma societies off research, like the Thunderbolts of the Gods people, the Electric Universe people. They use certain things like David Lapointe's experiments to show that they know how all the universe works all of a sudden. Don't make your research become religion, right? I'm telling you certain things that I was shown by the universe, and I'm also doing research for scientifically and through mythology and ancient writings to show evidence of certain things that I've shown. But I'm in no way telling you I have the answers to how it all works or how it all forms, right? I'm giving you connections so you can do your own exploring. And I hope I intrigue you to enough to do your own soul searching as well. So David Lapointe's primer fields, his simulations look like this, right? So this would be the simulated sun, and these would be those funnel structures that appear. Now, it's very interesting because physicist Anthony Perrot's model also lines up to a lot of this as well. I came upon this my own way, and I found a lot of other researchers were finding petroglyphs as well on their own that align with Anthony Perrot's. So Anthony Perrot has his structure here. Now you can see this conical structure This forms throughout the universe. This is the way the structures form within the plasma. NASA has proof of this, but this is his simulation experience of this is basically the solar wind flow, right? The aurora flow, all of this going on. And these would be the primer fields of David LaPointe, right? And these would be the flip ring and choke ring. Now you see these conical structures, even with the Dalai Lama's shit. Do I have let me see if I have the book. Might be in the other room. I might not have it in here. But damn, I might not have it in this office here. It might be in the other room. But you can see it with the hold on, let me look it up. Llamas. Yeah. Wow, look, that's all I had to do. Look it right up. You can see it right here in the llamas universe. Look. You got the sun type star with the like this is the way the temples are formed, right? And we're going to get into that. And you can see, look at the conical structure with the ring around it. This is the way, and if you look into it, they call this the blue light. And it's actually called that in plasma physics as well, the blue light. Like we use that in a lot of the symbolism, right? The blue and the reds and all of that. So well, I don't want to get too much deeper into jump around too much, but you guys can see that they have all of these in all cultures, right? And I've been drawing those conical structures with ankhs and for 20, 30 plus years and not realizing that I was basically having some sort of automatic writing with the universe. The universe was, and I mean, I could show you going back to the 90s notebooks where I've been doodling those structures in various ways, right? And I have proof of it. I mean, I've been sending them out to people as well. Um, and the universe at its own time started giving me answers to this. And you can see that we have right now, you're going to see that environment of Jupiter is incredible. The plasma of the magnetosphere of Jupiter is coming internally, not from the sun. And it's forming that huge Jovian magnetosphere. Now, on September 12th, this is very important, people. So put out your spidey ears. If you haven't been listening to me this whole time, listen now. On September 12th, we have an interesting alignment that's happening with Earth and Jupiter, where Jupiter's magnetosphere is going to be streaming to our magnetosphere. And this only happens about once every 13 months. And I think it's going to be September and October that we're going to have this connection. But on September 12th, there's a bridge that's happening for souls. And this bridge is going to be directly for souls on Earth to be sent to the planet, the moon Io. It's a hellish environment, and souls will be getting baptized through the fire, if you want to say. Incinerations of things will happen within their souls. That Garuda is forming a bridge with his wings with the Garuda of Earth. And souls, if they have their way to find the path, they can actually take that bridge to the moon of Jupiter to be incinerated in the crazy environment there. Right? And that's the very interesting thing that I was going to be shown. And these are the holy fires of the Samothracian mysteries. This is why volcanoes are formed through stars and suns and magnetized environments that send out plasma, right? And music and sound and vibration. The music from the stars and the suns and the planets are what forms volcanoes. right? Volcanoes rise up out of the sea from sound of the music of the universe, right? This is what brings earthquakes. This is what makes volcanoes rise. And there's been certain temples that have been installed on Earth and forgotten about for specific times where Earth needs to be replenished, right? And these are what stupas are. Stupas are these cones, these upside down bells, right? It's a bell on top of a Buddha or a Hindu god, right? These stupa temples, they're literally bells, upside down bells. They're those same funnels, but they're funnels coming from the sky, right on top of Earth, right? And the kabiri, the ancient kabiri races. Now, the kabiri, this is a generic term, like the Orpheus mysteries, the kabiri, the Titans, the Nephilim. These are generic terms, right? The Asura Deva, these are generic names for these ancient people, right? But the kabiri Titans were also these seven great gods of the cosmos and astronomy, right? And as Titans, they were called the children of the sun, right? Because of them being connected to the divine sun as well. The Atlanteans, they were called the Titans, right? And in Diodorus's writings, he describes them as the ones that invented fire and the ones that brought light and life to this planet, right? They were the ones that brought iron and metal working and gold working and all of this stuff, right? All this stuff. They were the ones of Prometheus. They were the ones of the Vulcan, of the volcanoes, right? They were the cosmic generators of the seasons, right? They were the ones that the presiding deities over the great volcanic energies that are coming directly from the cosmos, right? The volcanoes is how new life, new earth emerges from the planet. When the planet is about to replenish itself from the sun, restart, the volcanoes start to rise and spit up new earth on top of the old one, right? And this is going to be a baptism by fire that's coming to this planet. And these temples are going to be reawakening, like Borobudur. Why do you think that temple is in the most volcanic region on the planet and right now has been forgotten about for many thousands of years or hundreds of years, right? In Indonesia, Indonesia is the most volcanic region we have on Earth, right? Borobudur is a sound temple to rise volcanoes up out of the sea, to rise volcanoes, right? It's through harmonics. And I talked about this on Don's show just a night or two ago. How just the island of Patmos, where the John from the Revelation, the book of Revelation was prophesied on this island in the temple of Artemis. And this island has a story that talks about the moon and the sun making a deal and using its rays to illuminate an island at the bottom of the sea and rise it from the waters. How incredible is that? And when we're talking about an island, Patmos, it's a volcanic island, it would once have been at the bottom of the waters. Yeah, I do need a huge platform with this info. You're right. Unfortunately, I'm not good at marketing. I mean, I have my website and stuff, but I don't have a well-produced thing. If anybody out there knows how to edit videos and produce videos and do all that, let me know. We can work together because I have information for days. And most of my information is way more high level and more advanced than most of the people that talk about that they're experts. Do you realize that I know people that do tours in Egypt and consider themselves Egyptologists, and they don't even realize the origins of the word Osiris? I told them that, oh yeah, his real name was Asar, and that comes from Asura. They were like, what's an Asura? I was like, excuse me, lady, don't you give tours and charge people thousands of dollars to teach them about Egyptian culture? And Osiris is the Greek name for him. Egyptians didn't call him Osiris. He was called the Asar Natar, the Asar. asara, which comes from the asura, right? So just things like that blow my mind, right? Blows my mind. But a lot of people out there, and I don't want to say too many names. I'll give you one of them, like Brian Forrester. I've had him on my show. I don't really talk to him anymore. I would share information with this guy and he'd give me one word answers back. Or he'd be like, "Oh, share this with me. Tell me more." And I'd give him this long email and he wouldn't even respond to you. He would write thanks. Or if I just just people that just like think that they're way better than people and they're not experts. They get paid to take vacations to sites. They'll go like that dude, he'll have all these people pay for his tour, right? All these people buy tickets to go to Peru that pays for his ticket, and then he'll take them to the site and be like, "Look, they had advanced technology thousands of years ago." Oh, really? Thanks. That's a friggin' revelation, brother. You know, like they're not telling you anything real. They're telling, look, they might have had stone cutting back then. Look, I mean, we could have figured that out by ourselves. We didn't need your curly headed friggin' your dumbass. Right? You looked like a 1970s porn star too. Uh, I don't know. It's just people are funny, like out there. I don't bring up other people too much, right? But I do recommend you guys check out this one guy that I saw, Stefan. He talks about a lot of the solar storms. I'll get his name later. His name's Stefan something. He does give daily updates about the spaceweather.com about what's going on at the sun. I just found him like a day or two ago, right? When I was researching about the September 12th alignment with Jupiter and what I was shown about souls, but we're going to have a communication between the magnetosphere of Jupiter and Earth's magnetosphere. That's a fact, right? You can say I'm talking out my ass when I talk about the souls and this and that. I can't prove that, but it's a fact that on September 12th, Jupiter's magnetosphere, which is powered from within, right? It's not powered by our sun. It's powered from within, but that's very special. It's powered from a moon, a volcanic moon, Io, right? Really incredible. Really incredible. Yeah. Who's Burns? Well, I gave him a burn. Well, no, that dude, you know what? I brought up that one guy's name because like I've told him off a few times in the past because he was very rude to me and a few times. And he's a friend of many of my friends, but who cares? You know, those guys, I'm just saying, I'm trying to tell you, Stefan Burns, is that his name? It might be Stefan Burns. He does like daily space. Yeah, he's pretty cool. I'm gonna see if I can get him on my show. I don't know if I agree with everything he talks about because I don't agree with anything everybody talks about. Just like you shouldn't agree with everything I talk about. But uh, he talks about solar storms and gives the daily updates of the sunspots and what's transpiring. I think even things that he might talk about the wait, I'll look it up. Hold on. I just saw one of his videos like a day or two ago. Yeah, Stefan Burns. That is his name. Yep, Stefan Burns. Hey, he's got like 94,000 subscribers too. He's doing well. So he did a video that talks about a radiation storm strengthens with an energy deluge coming from Jupiter. So I definitely recommend using both of our channels for that information that we're talking about for September 12th starting. So that would be, maybe we can work together in the future because the way he was talking in that one video that I saw seems like he understands that there's what the storms that are coming from the sun and what's coming from the sun is affecting us spiritually, energetically, astronomically, all this stuff, right? And these ancient kabiros, right? The kabiri, they brought light to the world in the ancient mythologies, right? This is how light is channeled through us to us from stars. They're not people. Remember that. These are cosmic, solar, stellar phenomenon. And the people that took on those same names were the ones that were harnessing and working with this energies and had the knowledge of this, right? That's why it became like a generic term, right? They weren't their specific names of people. It was a generic term for the knowledge that they were wielding. And the name Kabiros, Kabeiros, means powerful through fire, right? And wherever of one of these Kabiri cults popped up, it was always connected with sacred fire, sacred volcanoes, sacred solar worship, sacred worship of stones that come from the stars, the skies, like meteorites, things like this, and solar deities, right? Let me pull up the chat room. I lost the chat room for a minute. Yeah, so they were fire priests, right? The druids were fire priests, snake fire priests, right? These snake priests have to do with the solar emissions, right? It doesn't have to do with snakes, serpents. It has to do with the way the electricity and currents and information moves through the plasma waters, through the cosmic waters, right? And you could see these funnel structures. I mean, we're misinterpreting them on everything. Like, even when you see this is a papyrus from Cairo, Egypt, from the Cairo Museum. And even when you see these conical structures here that look like they're just on stands for flowers, right? These aren't technically flowers. Those are those plasma cones as well. They're irradiating and they're on these long plasma column funnels with the choke flip rings right there, right? And you could see it's literally the arms of the sun handing down coronal mass ejections, coronal loops to its solar king, holding the water jugs of heaven, right? And even when you have this one, right? When you have these horns are that same bell shape. Do you see this? This is actually a bell, a funnel. This cone, it's a conical structure, right? The horns form a cone or a funnel or a flower bud type thing, right? That's that same structure you see here behind me, right here. That's this, and that's also this chalice. You see the chalice that has the face right here and the flip choke ring, the same structure you saw coming out of the llama's thing before that I showed you with the ring around the thing here, right? These deities represent suns, stars, not people, right? And this is the goddess Hathor. This is the priest of Osiris. Look at with his crooked staff representing the coronal loop and the angle of light it's coming down in, right? And you can see all of these conical, look at this is an upside down bell right here on top of this conical structure as well. You guys see that all, right? What rings your bell? That's the structure that is involved with funneling and streaming information and light throughout the universe. It's a structure that forms. I've seen it even form with lens flares. When you're taking pictures, there'll be like these lens flares that come and they look like these little funnels within funnels coming down from the sun from the lens flare. It forms within plasma. It forms within light. It's a sacred structure of the universe. It's really incredible, right? And we're going to have volcanic regions emerging and awakening that have been long sleeping. and Jupiter is going to be involved with this, and it's going to start happening in September. And yeah, information energy beams, funnels. Exactly. This is the way it happens. This is even why the powerful symbol of the bell that we have, chiming the bell, those are powerful, powerful symbols, powerful ways to communicate the sound of the light. That's the way the universe broadcasts the sound of the light. Right? This is the Space Water Podcast where we dive into the sound of the light. Right? Sponsored by the mysticalspiralstore.com, everybody. So don't forget that. And we're going to share a little bit more about this because these kabiri races, right? They're the Samothracians, the Samothrace, right? All of these ancient races, the Adami that they talked about, the dark race of Africa, right? The islands of Samothracian islands, the Thracians that also had the area of Bulgaria, that ancient area, all throughout the Aryan and Indo-Aryans, all throughout the Middle East, Japan, China, all throughout Native America, all throughout the world. These races had colonies and had sacred sites and temples, and especially they built their temples in the most volcanic of regions for specific reasons. And this is about sound, vibration, so they can awaken the planet, various things on the planet like earthquakes and volcanoes. Do you realize these are all formed through lightning as well, right? These are all happening, like lightning is activating all the stuff on Earth as well, and things like that. Like it's all coming from the sun. But with Jupiter, things are happening from within Jupiter, from the moon of Io. Very interesting place. And this is a place where souls get brought to for incineration, to remove things from the soul, to burn it off in a way. I don't know how else I could put it, right? But there's a bridge happening on September 12th. And I think that people that passed away during this Lion's Gate, they have a small window to find their way to that stream. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe they're being brought there as well. I don't have any answers. I just know what I've been shown. I know what I feel. And maybe it's not up to us. Maybe we're actually getting escorted there. I have no idea. But this word kabiri is very popular through theosophy. It's very popular in the ancient mythologies. It's a generic name for the holy fires in the Samothracian mysteries, right? And they were the founders of the sacred Vulcan gods and Prometheus, right? And then they have the Kabir, who was born of the holy Lemnos, right? That Pindar talks about as the Adamas, right? A type of primitive man that was born from the bosom of the earth and from the divine fire, so, and this is of like progenitors that were spiritual of nature as well. Like they were a different race than we were, that formed these other races through the volcanic fires, right? So this is, I think, talking about DNA and different things being brought here from other parts of the universe and being, mixed in the cauldron of Earth, and rising races and rising earth and rising new Earth and all sorts of things, right? So it's incredible, right? It's not primitive information as all, like many scholars think, right? When they talk about the Samothracian mysteries and the Kabiri, who were said to drink from two fountains, the fountain of Lethe, which is oblivion, and Menesome, which is memory, right? These are the cosmic gods, the great polar gods that they talk about in the Samothracian mysteries. Very interesting, because the North and the South Pole can be attributed mainly to heaven and hell. Right? This is where the auroras come in. This is where there's openings in our planet and where energies and light is channeled in. And these are where the primer fields might be, right? Where conical structures might form to channel in light on the planet. This might also happen around our sun, right? These conical structures. It's a very controversial subject within plasma physics, right? Because unfortunately, in science, you can't have uh, people just having these dogmatic views on things because they've spent millions of monies on experiments and grants and things like that. So it's very hard to get something as new evidence arises. It's very hard for science to change it. Oh, go ahead, Charlotte, lay down. I'm glad you were watching. Glad you were watching for sure. And you guys also support me right here on, you can support me in the super chat. You can support me on PayPal at moontribe712 at hotmail.com is my PayPal, or the Mystical Spiral. You can find it, or you could just find my PayPal at themysticalspiral.com. You guys can also go to my Patreon where I share all this information and diagrams and everything like that. Patreon.com/themysticalspiral. Also, you can go to the Mystical Spiral store, which sponsors tonight's show and the Space Water podcast. Yeah, the Samothracian mysteries are very interesting. The ancient Thracian races are very interesting. You know, Bulgaria is a very ancient place. We call it Bulgaria now, but this was the land of the Thracians, one of their main hubs, right? And the Thracians were one of the most diverse races as well. Very similar. They're in my opinion, they're direct ancestors of the Vedic tribes, right? They're Asura tribes, for sure. Asura tribes. I mean, you could even look at some of the names of the places throughout Bulgaria, and you could find out. And there's a lot of mysteries that goes with Bulgaria, right? They have the Y-Files guy just did a video. I can't believe how much money that guy probably makes on YouTube, but uh I didn't watch it, but I saw the title. It was on my feed because I've talked about that same place many times. It's like it's a well-known bogus scene. I have a lot of family from Europe. My wife is first generation here from her father is passed, but he was from Hungary, and her mom is from Slovakia, and her mom has very heavy dialect. You could, you can't barely understand her if you haven't spent a lot of time around her, right? So like her family is really old school European, and um, I've spent a lot of time researching a lot of European mysteries and places in Europe, and one of the most well-known mysteries of Europe is in Bulgaria. And there's a couple of places that have to do with what I'm talking about too in Bulgaria like that had to do with Thracians. Stranya is one place in the Rhodope Mountains. Stranya is a very mysterious place. And then you have Sarchina. Now look at the name Sarchina, Tsar. That's Asar, right? Asura, Sarchina, right? Also, where my mother-in-law is from in Slovakia is called Yarbina, the little small town she's from. Very similar, right? Just sound shift names. But these are Asura warrior tribe areas that first, well, I don't know about first, but that inhabited it a very long time ago, right? Thousands and thousands of years ago. And Bulgarian, the ancient Thracian race, they were master gold workers and goldsmiths. I mean, they were minting and printing them, right? Advanced technologies. Um, you know, in Sarchina, they have this hole. Now, in 1989, there were a lot of democratic changes that happened in Europe, especially in Bulgaria, places like that. So, starting right at that time, the government started, doing some projects that they weren't allowed to do previously. right? And a lot of things started coming out to light more into the public at this time. And they dug this huge hole, spiral tunnel that might have been previously, once they started digging, they found a pre-existing tunnel. Um, I don't know, 600 feet down. They were going deep down, and they were looking for, at first they were supposed to be looking for I think the lost treasures of King Samuel or whatever. But in reality, that was just what they told the public, right? They actually were looking for, well, there's two places that they went. There's another place in Strania where it said that supposedly they were saying that the Egyptian goddess Bast was buried there or whatever, right? Or she was there in like a stasis, right? But uh the Sarcina hole is like the Bulgarian Area 51. Supposedly there was an entity buried down there, but at one time they said they were looking for um advanced technology that had to do with like deterring comets from hitting the planet and all this type of stuff. You guys can look it up. It was called Operation Sunray, but I think it was called Glory before that, Operation Glory before that. But I think it was they called it Operation Sunray, which is very interesting naming it the Sunray, right? And I'll do another episode on that because I'm pretty sure the Y-Files guy, he just gives you the Wikipedia breakdown of it. Um, but I have a lot of books that, you know, a lot of information that I've researched over the year. I've talked about this thing on my Patreon many times, and I have a chapter in my book where I'm writing about it, about the military excavations that were happening. They were supposedly contacting. I mean, they brought psychics, telepaths. They used Baba Vanga, who was the known seer in Bulgaria. Um, and they had from 1988. Let me get my notebook. From 1988 to 92, they did this in pretty much absolute secrecy. And for 4 years, there was a spiral tunnel that went 613 feet deep, right? And 443 feet long was dug under Sardinia, right? And like I said, they were supposedly at first told everybody that they were looking for treasures. I think it's like near the village of Sardinia. I don't think it's actually in Sardinia, but this is on the outskirts of Sofia, right near the village of Sardinia, I think. But they had psychics that were involved. Um, and let me bring up too that, Bulgaria is one of the poorest countries, if not the poorest country in Europe, right? And this was at a time where they were just ending a lot of, communism and things like that was going on. So they didn't have the money. They were using tax, people's money, government's money that they shouldn't have been using for 4 years to dig this tunnel, right? For all the excavations, the equipment, the crew. And I don't think they had any um archaeologists on site. So technically that's against the law. When you're doing digging like that and there's no archaeologists that's involved, that's punishable by law. I don't think people realize that. So it was done in secrecy. And you know, the territory that's around Sardinia is also, it's like a mound there. There's a lot of mounds and megalithic sites and all throughout Bulgaria, all in the Rhodope Mountains, all throughout all of Bulgaria has dolmens and megaliths and all this. But yeah, at first, they told everybody that they were looking for the riches or treasures of Samuel of Bulgaria, like the king. But that's not really what they were doing. And no permits were obtained for the glory. It was first it was for glory was what it was first called, and then it was made into Project Sunray, right? But I mean, they didn't have any archaeologists. and the military were just trying to, you know, get rich or get power or whatever, because they weren't trying to do it and have archaeologists involved so they can have some sort of real expedition going on. But this is the very, very well known myth and lore, and so much stories. Even to this day, it's still very, very popular in Bulgaria. Very popular. And there was a psychic that they had, Elena Loganova, but people don't realize she wasn't psychic before this. All of a sudden, she became psychic during these excavations, and her husband was part of the excavation. She was like one of the military, and she was the wife of one of the officers of the expedition. So I don't know, they had the first guy, Kekemenov, that they brought in, right? He was sort of like a paranormal psychic investigator. And he was the one saying that he thought the King Samuel's treasures were down there. But yeah, I mean, they originally were saying, and this sounds very much like the Space Odyssey movie of Arthur C. Clarke. Oh, by the way, old friend of Arthur C. Clarke, I'll be having Professor Chandra Wickramanasinghe back on my show Friday on the Space Water podcast, but it will be at 6 a.m. my time, Eastern time. It'll be 11 a.m. in the UK time. I'm doing it 11 a.m. his time. So if you guys want to catch me live at 6 a.m. on Friday, I'll be live at 6 a.m. Otherwise, you guys can catch the replay. But yeah, originally they had said, and this sounds just like the Space Odyssey movie, that so-called extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials, aliens, whatever you want to call them, they had placed some sort of weapon blueprints in a pyramid-shaped crystal container that they had hid millions of years ago deep inside the earth. And of course, it was in Sarchina, right? That's what they were saying. So this to me does sound very much like the movie, but the only difference is it was in Bulgaria, right? But I don't know. I have no idea. But they had psychics involved. I know that there was a lot of paranormal activity once they started digging. There was a lot of stuff that happened. They even have some of the hieroglyphs that were written by Elena Loganova that I have in right here. You guys can see. I'll post this on my Patreon for you guys later. That's some of the channelings that she got, which I find very interesting because I've done similar doodles myself. So between fact and fiction, it's hard to go through a lot of it because so many stories have been told over the years about that. But Bulgaria is a very mysterious place, especially Stranya. There's a hole, a cave in Stranya that's called the Tomb of Bastet, right? And this area supposedly has, you can't even go into the cave because the high radiation that comes out of it. But it doesn't either rule out though that they could have poured nuclear waste down there in the past or something like that, right? Or anything, could have happened. So I do feel that there is some sort of entity in stasis in deep beneath that area of Bulgaria. That it's very strong. It comes to me. And that kabir is also used in Hebrew, the kabiri, not just in Samothracian and Thracian, right? In, Cain was represented as a kabir. Tubal Cain was a kabir, and he was Vulcan, right? Vulcan. And he also, the deity of Israel, was always called the Great Kabir, right? And in Hebrew, what's interesting, the word kab, K-A-B, means to roll around, right? And kab in Egyptian, K-H-A-B, means to give birth to, right? And that Ari, A-R-I, or A-R-U, Aru, in Egyptian, these are the watchers, the companions, the keepers, right? So Very interesting. It's sort of like where you also get the word Kabbalah from, the kabiri. These are how you measure the stars, the measures of the sky, the measures of the stars, you give birth to light, the measure of the stars, all of this, the kabari, the kabiri, you know, this is the watchers, right? And they were also said to be the founders of all the root races that were connected to the North Pole. Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. And of course, Mount Meru is connected to this as well, and the North Pole of the heavens always represented as a mountain, right? And the South Pole is always represented as a pit, right? The mountain and the pit. The Helion and the Acheron. Once again, everybody, don't forget this is the Space Water Podcast, and you can find me right here at the Mystical Spiral Store.com. We got everything you need: crystals, gemstones, copper, energy devices. And let me know if you see something that's out of stock that was just purchased today or yesterday. Some of them I could put back in stock. This one I got to do better pictures of because it's got like greens and blues and everything in there. Yeah, you guys can see this. One of the newer opals, Ethiopian opal. I got to take better video of this one. You can't really see it that great, but guys, I have some of the most powerful products that you could find out there, and they're lifelong companions. You can get the highest quality, most ethically sourced gemstones, crystals, and some of the coolest copper energy devices that you could find on the planet. Yeah, this one just sold today. I just made that yesterday too. Incredible. And this opal is worth about $100 or more itself, just by itself. Very, very 12.74 carats of very high quality natural Ethiopian opal gemstone. Really incredible. And I've been giving out Herkimer diamonds for free as gifts. I even have some Herkimer diamonds here, and I'll have more I'll be putting up soon. Let me know if you want to buy them by themselves as well. But I these Herkimer diamonds are worth a lot of money. I looked on some eBay. People are selling them for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Um, I've been giving them out as gifts as well. So you guys, I have some others available as gifts. Here's one that very good price for this Herkimer diamond. This is a small little regular wrapped in silver, but I have ones that are with the twisted copper as well. They told me who bought it. I love this one too. This is a spirit quartz. Badass. And this has over 44 inches of copper in it, twisted copper. Look at this Herkimer diamond. This one is massive. People sell this for over $200, that size Herkimer diamond. And you could get a twisted copper coil with it for that price. Amazing. Amazing. Look at the size of that Herkimer. Incredible. So guys, don't miss out. Oh, you guys didn't see the images? Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it back up. Can you see now? Hope you can see. Oh, you can see him now, right? Yeah, now you can see him. Yeah, this was the Herkimer diamond that I was showing. Look at the size of that bad boy. That's you guys. If you go to look up that on other crystal accounts, you'll find a Herkimer that size is worth $200 just by itself, at least. At least. This one just was bought today, but this is the one I was shown of opal before. Very high quality. So guys, you can find anything you need right here at the Mystical Spiral store. If you want to make a custom order, please contact me. I have the Labor Day sales still up. So don't forget, Friday we have Professor Chandra back on, and I'll see you guys soon. I'll be back on Don Rogers' show tomorrow night. So be good to each other, love each other, be prosperous, and we'll see you later. Spiral out. Dive into the light on the space.